To the many parents, spouses, brothers, sisters who have to bury a piece of their soul in the deep earth, it's really tough stuff. It's hard as hell. You all know it. To lose a colleague, to lose a son, a daughter, a husband, wife. And I want to thank, if there are not many here, but I want to thank all the spouses of every one of you or your significant other, because every time you pin that shield on and walk out the door, they're worried whether they're going to get that phone call. Get that phone call. Too many have gotten the phone call lately. And every day in this country, 316 people are shot, 106 are killed, and 6 NYPD officers have been victims of gun violence so far just this year. The same in the town north of me, Philadelphia, and my much smaller town of Wilmington, Delaware, Washington, D.C. 64 children injured by gun violence so far this year, 26 killed. It's enough. Enough is enough, because we know we can do things about this, but for the resistance we're getting from some sectors of the government and the Congress and the state legislatures and the organizational structures out there. You know, Mayor Adams, you and I agree. The answer is not to abandon our streets. That's not the answer. The answer is to come together, the police and communities, building trust and making us all safer. The answer is not to defund the police. It's to give you the tools, the training, the funding to be partners, to be protectors, and community needs you and know the community. You know, policing that treats everyone with respect and dignity. That's why I called on the Congress to pass a budget later this year that provides cities like New York and others with an additional $300 million for community policing. You know, where the police interact with the community, get to know the community, build trust in the community. And I've noticed in my experience when I wrote the first crime bill, I noticed that, you know, I don't hear many communities, no matter what their color, their background, saying, I don't want more protection in my community. I don't know. I haven't found one of those yet. And so I've asked the Congress to provide $200 million to invest in community violence intervention programs as well. They work. They work. Where community members with credibility work directly with people that are most likely to commit crimes or be victims of gun crimes. And they work. For example, in 2017, the program I'm going to see this afternoon, which sends people to the community, in the community to interrupt violence, to mediate conflicts, to de-escalate, succeed in preventing a single shooting from occurring in this largest public housing development last year. No shooting for a full year, because they engaged directly with the community. You know, I know this is a priority for Senator Schumer, what you all are doing here. If I hear one more call from him that we need more money for housing and more money for cops, I don't know. I'm going to send them back to y'all. But all kidding aside, this is $500 million of proven strategies, and we know will reduce crime. Congress needs to do its job to pass the budget. Every one of these folks here from Congress are all supportive. But, you know, it's time to fund communities, community police, and the people who are going to protect them. Look, as I said, we're not about defunding. We're about funding and providing the additional services you need beyond someone with a gun strapped to their shoulder, to their hip. We need more social workers. We need more mental health workers. We need more people who, when you're called on these scenes and someone's about to jump off a roof, is not just someone standing there with a weapon. It's someone who also knows how to talk to people, talk them down. We can't expect you to do every single solitary thing that needs to be done to keep a community safe. It's time to fund community policing to protect and serve the community. I'm also calling for increased funding for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and the U.S. Marshal's offices. I'm confident that if we fund these programs, we'll see a reduction in violence. In the next year's budget, I'm also going to try to double down on this investment. I think I got a lot of partners here in New York going to help. Mayor Adams, you say that gun violence is a sea fed by many rivers. Well, I put forward a plan to dam up some of those streams. you know, you can count on me to be a partner in that effort. And I have the U.S. Attorney, United States Attorney General here with me today. And we put together a comprehensive strategy to combat gun crime in cities like New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and many other cities, San Francisco. First, we want to crack down on the flow of firearms used to commit violence. That includes taking on and shutting down rogue gun dealers. It's about doing background checks, as well as outright selling making sure that people who are not allowed to have a gun don't get the gun in the first place. And again, for any of the press listening, this doesn't violate anybody's Second Amendment right. There's no violation of a Second Amendment right. We talk like there's no amendment that's absolute. When the amendment was passed, it didn't say anybody can own a gun and any kind of gun and any kind of weapon. You couldn't buy a cannon when this amendment was passed. And so no reason why you should be able to buy certain assault weapons, but that's another issue. And look, one of the things that we focused on, the Attorney General and I, and we're getting to the point where I think we're going to be able to have a real impact on it, includes going after ghost guns. Ghost guns are the guns everyone in this room knows that can be purchased in parts, assembled at home, no serial number, and can't be traced. And they're as deadly as any other weapon out there. But the fact is, they are out there. And, you know, this spring, the Justice Department will issue a final rule to regulate these so-called ghost guns. But there's more we can do. Across the country, police departments report sharp increases in the number of ghost guns found at crime scenes. That's why today the department is launching an intensified national ghost gun enforcement initiative to determine and deter criminals from using those weapons to cover their tracks. If you commit a crime with a ghost gun, not only are state and local prosecutors going to come after you, but expect federal charges and federal prosecution as well. We've also created a strike force to crack down on illegal gun trafficking across state lines. As the mayor said, as he pointed out, guns that are used to kill people in New York City, they aren't made in New York City. They aren't sold in New York City. They are sold in other places. Today, the Attorney General directed all U.S. attorneys in the United States to prioritize combating gun trafficking across state lines and city boundaries. The Justice Department is sending additional prosecutorial resources to help shut down what's referred to, as you all know, the iron pipeline that funnels guns from shops in states like Georgia to crime scenes in Baltimore and Philadelphia and New York and so many other places. Governor, you worked with the mayor and the NYPD and 9 other states to create an interstate task force on illegal guns. That's the kind of leadership that's going to solve the problem. And I'm eager to hear more about that progress. And folks, the second thing I want to point out is I want to help every major city follow New York's lead to put together partnerships like this one you put together and meet on a daily basis. Every day here in New York City, like this meeting today, federal, state, and local enforcement meet to share intelligence about arrests, shootings from the day before, and work to take those shooters off the street as quickly as possible. Just look around. This is what the partnership looks like, and this is what you put together. And it's an important partnership. We need more cities adopting the same model. That's why today the Attorney General is also directing U.S. attorneys to work with state and local law enforcement to strengthen partnerships like this one and to get repeat gun violence offenders off the street and behind bars. You know, I want more cities and states to use some of the $350 billion we sent to them on the American Rescue Plan to fight crime, to keep our communities safe, by hiring more police officers for community policing and paying police overtime, and purchasing gun-fighting technologies like the technologies that hears, locates gunshots, so there can be immediate response because you know exactly where it came from. The third thing our plan calls for investing in critical services that reduce crime and violence. Community violence intervention programs like the one I'm going to see after this meeting, summer school, after-school programs for teens As the saying goes, the teacher taught me, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. We got to have things for these kids to do, jobs for young adults, more school counselors and nurses, more mental health required in school, and mental health substance abuse treatment as well. Fourthly, when someone finishes their time in prison, all our experience tells us you just can't continue to give them 25 bucks and a bus ticket. They'll end up under the same bridge you arrested them in the first place from. And so I don't want them ending up back in prison or being there because they've committed another crime. We need to be able to train for and get a job, find stable housing, re-enter society, and have a second chance at a better life. My Department of Labor is funding programs that help formerly incarcerated individuals, including young adults, receive the education and training they need and then connect them to quality jobs. I'll keep doing everything in my power to make sure the communities are safer, but Congress needs to do its part too. Pass universal background checks, ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, close loopholes that keep out of the hands of domestic abusers weapons, repeal the liability shield for gun manufacturers. Imagine had we had a liability. They're the only industry in America that is exempted from being able to be sued by the public. Only one. Imagine had that been the way with cigarette manufacturers. Where the heck would we be? We'd be in tough shape. Why gun manufacturers? Because of the power of their lobbying ability. It's got to end. They got to be held responsible for the things that they do that are irresponsible. And folks, you know, it's the only industry in America, as I said, that's exempt from being sued. And I find it to be outrageous. And folks, these laws, if we are able to pass them, are going to save lives. And more equally importantly, help you protect one another and protect yourself. Put law enforcement in a safer circumstance. We have an opportunity to come to get together and fulfill the first responsibility of government and our democracy, to keep each other safe. So I want to thank you all. There's much more to say, but I probably already said too much because a lot of people are going to speak. But let's get this done. Let's get this done. And God bless the men and women who put their lives in line every single day to keep our communities safe. Now I'm going to turn it over, with your permission, to the Attorney General Garland. General?
Thank you, President Biden. As the President said, the Justice Department is doubling down on the fight to protect our communities from violent crime and from the gun violence that often drives it. But we are not doing this work alone. As the President also said, what you see in this room represents the core of our efforts, our partnerships, which are essential to success in disrupting violent crime. Yesterday, when the President and I spoke with the mayor on the telephone, the mayor talked about the importance of the excellent cooperation he is seeing between the city, state, and federal law enforcement agencies who are represented here. At the Justice Department, we know that the best anti-violent crime strategies are tailored to the needs of and are developed by and in partnership with individual communities. That is why all of our Justice Department law enforcement agencies and all 94 of our United States Attorney's offices, including the 2 represented by the United States attorneys who are here today, are working with their partners in state and local law enforcement to develop and implement district-specific anti-violent crime policies. We also know that while many of the public safety challenges our cities face require this tailored approach, gun violence is a universal challenge and one that demands comprehensive action. That is why, as the President said, the Justice Department is taking action to crack down on ghost guns and to hold those who illegally sell firearms to criminals accountable. That is why we are strengthening our firearms trafficking strike forces to disrupt the pipeline that floods our community with illegal guns. And that is why we are sparing no resource in identifying and holding accountable the repeat offenders who are the major drivers of violent crime. As we work in partnership with state and local law enforcement, We are also working in partnership with the communities most affected by this violence. Shortly, President Biden and I will be meeting with leaders of a community violence intervention program here in New York. In 2021, the department provided over $37 million in grant funding directly to community violence intervention efforts, and we will expand that work in the year ahead. The Justice Department will use every tool at our disposal to protect our communities. We will hold perpetrators of violent crime and gun violence accountable. We will work alongside the communities most affected by that violence, and we will work together to build the public trust that is essential to public safety. Before I close, I want to note that in times of crises, both large and small, the American people look to law enforcement to help. And every day, officers, like those who are with us here, answer the call without hesitation. Despite the difficulty and the danger, they show up and they put their lives on the line. That is what Detective Jason Rivera and Detective Wilbert Mora did. There are no words I can offer that could capture their bravery or the pain that has been inflicted on their loved ones. What I can say is that at the Department of Justice, we will seek to honor Detectives Rivera and Mora in the work we do to help keep our law enforcement officers safe as we work to keep our communities safe. I'll now turn the program over to Mayor Adams. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney General and Mr. President. It's really good seeing you. And how do we get here? When I was in Washington, D.C., we were in a meeting, and the president pulled me into the Oval Office. And after asking what could he do for the city and our desire to deal with violence, I had a brief nod, and I was about to walk out. And he grabbed me by my arm and turned me around and looked into my eyes. And he says, "Eric, what can we do?" And I told him the help we needed. And I asked him several things, but two of them was, one, to come to New York and to speak with our city, state, and federal law enforcement personnel so we could have a 9/11 response to this violence. We came together as a country when international terrorists decided to change our way of life, and we responded. And the response was the same by this president. In August, this room came together, some of the finest men and women in law enforcement, and they meet every day to zero in on the violence that is attempting to take our way of life. And I thank you for your response, and Mr. President, I thank you for your response. And then I asked him to go on the ground, because it's about intervention and prevention. And prevention are the long-term things we need to do. I asked him to go on the ground with us to meet the crisis management teams, the everyday people who are doing the hard work in alignment with the police department. And today, we're going out to Queensbridge and meet that team, where a young man named Kay Bain is using his skills to bring down violence. And in his area, we saw 0 homicides for a period of time. But it was not only because of what he did, it was because of what D.A. Katz did to partner with him by bringing down those known violent offenders. That's the combination we need. And I'm biased, Mr. President, because I have some of the best congressional delegations here in New York. Joining us today, we have the Dean of the delegation that's here, Congressman Nadler. We have Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, Congresswoman Grace Mean, Congressman Tom Suozzi, and we have the top Attorney General anywhere in this country, an Attorney General, Letitia James, and as you indicated, we have two of the best U.S. attorneys in the Southern and Eastern District that's here with us. We were so proud to meet with them yesterday, but also a district attorney team. As we see here, Katz, Darcel Clark, McMahon out in Staten Island, and D.A. Braggs. A real concerted and combined effort to get this done. And then I think about Congressman Espaillat. In his district, where the two officers were slain, but also in his district was where an 11-month-old baby was shot while sitting by her mother. Also in his district was where a 19-year-old child working in Burger King was shot and killed. And he was on the ground for each one of those incidents, standing with me as we fought against this violence. The police commissioner and I are dedicated and committed to turning this around. I made the best choice anyone can make in picking a police commissioner. She's the right person at the right time to do the right job, and I'm proud to serve with her. We know how important this is. Yesterday, we gathered at St. Patrick's Cathedral in mourning. Today, here at One Police Plaza, where I walked across that stage as a captain, we're here in solidarity to deal with the issue of violence that has become pervasive in not only New York City, but in the cities across America. And I want to thank all of you for joining me as we pursue this fight to make sure the stain of violence does not destroy our communities. And U.S. Attorney General Garland, I appreciate your commitment and dedication in living up to the promise that was done with your team as we sat in the room with Ambassador Susan Wright and sitting there with the president and other mayors across the city as we deal with this issue. The president is here because he knows what the American people want: justice, safety, and prosperity, and they deserve every bit of it. And he wants to end the gun violence in our city and in our country, in a future built on equality and opportunity, because the lack of the two feeds the gun violence that we are seeing. Far too often when we advocate for this, Mr. President, people miss the part that we state. We want to end inequality. Let's stop being divisive and united to come together and deal with this fight. We are on the same page. There is a reason they call me the Biden of Brooklyn. That's what New Yorkers want too. That's what I campaign on, and it's why you elected me as the mayor of the city of New York. And it's what the president came here today to hear from you and to deliver. Last week, my administration released our blueprint to end gun violence. There are many rivers, as you stated, that feed the sea of violence. We must dam every river. One river will cause another death prematurely in our city. And many reasons these rivers have continued to rise in our city and in our country, and we're going to stop them from doing so. But the president and these leaders that are here today, we are going to work together to end this violence in our city and in our country. When President Biden and I first met last summer, we hit it off right away. We had a clear mission, the average Joe, they call him, because we know we have to build a city and a country that's made up of everyday New Yorkers and Americans. He knows that public safety and justice are the bedrock of our economy, our democracy, and our society. And we know who we work for, the people. And that includes the dishwasher, people who wear coveralls, aprons, scrubs, and hard hats, the everyday people who just want to provide for their families and one day go from being a dishwasher, a mailroom attendant, and become a mayor of the city of New York. Everyday New Yorkers and everyday Americans. The people who want to raise their families in the city and in the country with good jobs, good schools, and safe streets. We both know our highest calling. Our most important mission is protecting the people of this city and of this country, making sure they have what they need to live their lives in safety, and helping them recover after 2 years of the devastation of COVID, crisis, and violence. There is no recovery without public safety. There is no recovery without justice. They go hand in hand. That is why we're working in lockstep to end the gun violence that has shaken our city, our nation, to protect our people and the officers who've sworn to protect us, and to restore the American dream of safety, stability, and prosperity. That is why the President is here in New York City, in this city today. He understands how serious this moment is. We need, as I stated, a 9/11 type response to address the domestic terror that is pervasive in this city and country. And President Biden is here to deliver on his promise to come here. He committed to it, and he is here. And get New Yorkers the backup we need. Far too long we called for backup, and it was not here. It is time to have that backup. This morning, the White House announced that the federal government would direct more resources to fight local crime around the country, expand the information sharing model that you are going to witness here today, Mr. President, and call for more funding for Congress for violent interrupters, something that my congressional delegation understands so clearly. We could build back if we pass Build It Back. That is how we build America back. And scale up a nationwide response to this public health crisis that is gun violence. That's why we're here today, to bring together our federal, state, and city partners in common cause. We're going to stop gun trafficking from coming into our city, get illegal guns off the streets, and lock up those who carry them, and make sure that they don't leave prison or jails without the opportunities they need, so they don't have a revolving door of crime in our city and country. We're going to provide funding for cities and states to put more police officers in the places we need them, invest in community violence prevention and intervention programs, and change our laws to prevent crime and save lives, and do it in a way that we can disagree without being disagreeable, because we are in this fight together. We're going to break and destroy the iron pipeline that allows southern states in this country to produce weapons that end up on the streets and take the lives of our police officers, Mora and Rivera. And I want to, again, take my hat off to Officer Summit, who protected countless numbers of New Yorkers and responding police officers by taking the appropriate action to end the threat that we were facing. We're going to dam those rivers of violence and address the sources of those violence. It's about more than fighting crime. As Congressman Velasquez reminds us all the time, it's about rebuilding our society. It's not just locking people up. It's about picking them up and giving them the opportunity to do so. That is why the American people elected Joe Biden to lead them. That is why we're willing to follow that leadership. And that is why I'm proud to be here today among the men and women who wore that same uniform that I wore, to stand shoulder to shoulder with the President. And we want to get stuff done. That's the administration of the Biden's administration and the Adams administration, to get stuff done for the American people. And Mr. President, Eric Adams is reporting for duty and ready to serve.
Thank you,
I'm
Eric.
going to turn it over to our governor.
And we've been listening to President Biden, Attorney General Merrick Garland, and New York City Mayor Eric Adams speaking ahead of their meeting with other New York City officials. They all talked about the importance of curbing illegal guns and getting them off the streets. The president says he has spoken with the families of the 2 New York City police officers who were killed last month.
Yeah, the president, of course, addressing a rise in crime, not just in New York City, but really in major cities around the country. And he's saying investments must be made in what he calls community policing. He's also asking Congress for $200 million in funding to that end.
President Biden also says the administration is working on a national strategy to fight gun violence. We're going to take a quick break now, but do stay with us. We have a lot more news ahead. You're streaming CBS News, always on.
In a original CBS Reports documentary.
50 shows running, the lights blinking.
People fight their entire career to get to Broadway.
You trained your entire life.
Spotlights, drama, passion.
This is what we live for.
Until COVID turned off the lights.
It's like going from a bright light to pitch black.
Scenes from Broadway's unique struggle with COVID.
It was devastating.
Broadway contributes about $15 billion to New York City's economy and 100,000 jobs.
The sound team, the lighting team, everyone.
The world does not realize how big this is.
This is how we make money.
This is a specialized industry. You don't tell a doctor to go get a serving job. Why are we different?
Are we going to be able to pay our rent? Am I going to have food?
What will happen in Broadway's new opening act?
We're in uncharted waters again.
The show must go on.
There is reason to hope again.
I think people are going to be crying. I know I will.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. An original CBS Reports documentary.
Shots fired, second floor.
Pleading with legislators, listen to us. Do something about this epidemic.
The agenda ultimately is to disarm the populace.
They come for our throats. We need to fight back fire with fire.
Do you see any room for gun legislation?
No.
Registration?
It's an infringement.
No room at all?
No room at all.
My daughter huddled on the floor with her classmates, on the phone to police, pleading for help.
The Second Amendment isn't about hunting and self-defense. It's about shooting tyrants in the face.
I don't think it's necessary for them to disappear, but we have an unhealthy attitude towards guns.
Boys like their toys.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now.
CBS News Colorado, powered by CBS 4. Get closer to the big stories, breaking news, and weather live as it happens. Stream the local team you trust on the CBS News app and on Pluto TV.
An original CBS Reports documentary.
I genuinely love the process of manipulating people online for money.
One man with total control of billions of people's stolen data.
Creating lies, denying truths.
Swap a face, make a face, change a voice. Now you have this very powerful machinery for creating synthetic media.
As new technology makes any video content possible.
I saw images of me taken from my social media and posted on these pornographic sites. It was completely horrifying.
How do we distinguish fact from fiction?
The technology has gotten so good that I think it's only a matter of time before deepfakes are used to influence an election.
What have you created? A monster.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at CBS News. I'm Tanya Rivero in New York.
And I'm Errol Barnett in Washington. Great to share a split screen with you, Tanya.
Absolutely.
Here's a look at the top stories we're following for everyone right now.
This operation is testament to America's reach and capability to take out terrorist threats no matter where they try to hide anywhere in the world.
Top terrorists dead. The president says the global head of ISIS has been taken off the battlefield in Syria. Administration officials say he blew himself up as U.S. troops moved in.
And President Biden heads to New York City to talk crime. His visit comes the day after the NYPD buried its second officer killed in the line of duty in the past few weeks.